the speed he would carry into the corners, it was mind-blowing. It was like, there's no way. But again, you have the data. It teaches you, I'm going to try this next session, and you do it, and the rear stays there, and you can carry that speed. And if that's the apex, he just points here to the wall, but somehow because he has understeer, and then I just learned so much.
Welcome to the RACER Debrief. I'm Lawrence Foster. This is RACER's Editor-at-Large, David Melcher-Lopez. And we're joined by a very special guest today, a veteran of over 200 IndyCar starts, an 11-time Indy 500 starter, a Champ Car race winner, and I guarantee you, a guy who is going to lead laps at St. Petersburg this weekend. He's the driver of the official IndyCar pace car, and it's Oriol Servia. Oriol, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Very excited to do this.
Our pleasure. And just putting you on the spot right from the start.
The
Alex
pace car
Palou.
spot. Yes.
We'll go to pace cars later.
Okay.
But first of all, I just want to talk about your fellow Catalan, Alex Palou. Is there any case to say that that guy won't make it 4 out of 5 championships in 5 years?
First of all, I have to clarify, he's not only Catalan and Spanish, he's from the same town of Girona that I am from, 60, 70,000 people. So,
is there something in the water?
I was going to say, obviously not, because if not, I would have gotten it and be as good as he is. He just doesn't put a foot wrong. He is so good, and he's good at many things. All the top guys are very good, right? But his strengths play in ways that are even more important in IndyCar than anywhere else, I feel. And honestly, I think he's going to be a contender as long as he races.
I mean, elephant in the room, is it a big deal that the guy hasn't won an oval race yet?
I don't think so. I don't think it's a big deal in the sense that I think it's coming. And I think also when I started IndyCars or Champ Cars, right, half of the schedule were ovals. Now you don't have as many. And the ones we have are kind of double weekends at the same place. So if you started strong and you're up front, you have a better chance. If you didn't, you didn't. So I feel it's going to come. And we've seen him race great, like at the 500 already, right? I mean, he hasn't won. Only one guy of the 33 wins, but he finished second, I believe, right? Yeah. I mean, it doesn't get only a little bit better than that, right? So I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's going to come.
And it's a streamlined Chip Ganassi racing as well this year. It's down to 3 cars. A real sort of added focus on Alex and the wily old campaigner Scott Dixon. I mean, does that sort of play into their hands, having it smaller, sort of more streamlined in current IndyCar thinking?
I don't know. I don't think so. Especially at the level of a Ganassi or a Penske team, like, they have the depth, they have the capacity to hire enough talented people that want to go work at those teams. So when they have 4 cars, they have them all prepared at the top level. So I know that's what they say. Teams are, we're going down to 3 cars. It's going to help us focus. I think they were already great last year, and they're going to be still great this year. But that's my opinion.
And David, a stacked field. In previous years, we've talked about the big 3. We've sort of said maybe there's a big 2, and then there's like a second tier. Just give us your thoughts on who are the guys who are basically going to be keeping Alex honest, as it were.
Of course, his teammates, and of course the Penske drivers. All 3 of them will be contenders. I think this is the year that McLaren are going to edge closer, and I think part of that's going to be driven by the arrival of Christian Lundgaard. I think the disparity in driving technique between himself and Pato is actually going to help the team progress. I think it's less important that the driving styles are similar, and more important that they're disparate because it just covers more bases. So I think this is the year that they're going to step it up. Elsewhere, I think Rossi can do a good job for ECR for sure. And then I think there's going to be some surprises, and I think one of those is going to be Meyer Shank. I hold Armstrong and Rosenqvist in high regard as a pairing. I think they're my kind of like cautious bet for multiple podiums.
And what about we've got Prema on the scene this year. We've got them with the relative experience of Callum Ilott. They're bringing in Robert Schwartzman, another guy from top tier feeder series in Europe. Oriol, do you think that Prema will make a mark in 2025?
I mean, I know they've hired a lot of people familiar with IndyCar and top talent, but I think they're going to have a bit of an awakening, as any other team that comes from Europe and with a high pedigree, but also high expectations. It's a tough championship, and you were just mentioning how some great teams that have been trying for a long time to get in at the same level as a Penske or Ganassi. So a new team that just lands, even if it comes with huge pedigree and they've won everywhere, I think it's going to take them a while, but I mean, they're going to be competitive because again they've hired the right people, the right team. Callum is super talented, right? I think it's going to be tough, but I'm super excited because just what you guys were talking, right? You have Penske and Ganassi who are always going to be there. They're always going to be the reference. They have the capacity to have budgets to hire the top people. As we all know, it's a human game at the end of the day, right? Who can hire the best talent, works, engineers, mechanics. But you have McLaren. You mentioned they've been knocking at the door at being at the top, and they've been close. We have my good buddy Tony Kanaan that it's in charge of the team now. That comes with a lot of responsibility, pressure. He has huge experience. He's been at top teams. He's seen it all. So he can replicate and try to make it better. He's got the support of Zach behind and the whole McLaren story. So they should be and they will be contenders. You have Andretti, who forever they've been the team that is the closest to being on an equal level as Penske and Ganassi. And there've been some eras sometimes that they've been maybe even stronger, especially at the Speedway, which is what we all, care the most. But the last few years, they've been maybe a little inconsistent. They hired Craig Hampson, which you guys know I'm a huge fan. Every time I work with Craig at Newman Haas through my career, I've always been super impressed with, his, how talented, how hard work, he puts behind. And I think he came in last year in May. So last year was probably just getting there. Now he's had a full year, and I know the whole team has been a bit, restructured, and he's pushing hard. So they're going to be there. So now you have 4 teams already that are at the very top. Rahal, another one of my most beloved teams. They've had, 3-4 years of a big struggle that they've been going through big changes. And they have a new engineer, I think, heading the whole operation, Yves Turon, who I've worked many times with. I love the guy. He's talented. And they're working hard. They have the budget. They have great ownership and great drivers. So that they should be there. ECR, you were just mentioning, with new investors and new money. And they've always were strong at the 500. And they have Rossi now that comes with experience of other teams, and obviously he's good. He's a guy that works hard. I mean, it just doesn't stop. You have Foyt, who was nowhere years ago, and the last few years they're back on top, and they have now, Ferrucci, Malukas, and the partnership with Penske, right? So that's a good technical stuff that they could be up there anytime. Honestly, it just keeps going and going. So that's why I'm saying it's not like Prema can arrive and they only have to fight one team and that's the target. There's so many that are so strong.
Have to fight the grid.
It's super exciting. And if you are those teams, that's the time because the new car is coming. Hopefully 27, I don't know. A new car is coming, so you have to now set everything else but the car, the people working together, and you have to put yourself up there as, hey, the next big sponsor that comes has to come here because we're the new. So it's cool. I mean, I'm super excited. I'm just a pace car driver, but I'm a fan, and I think it's gonna get better and better.
You'd said about technical partnerships, and obviously with Foyt, they're aligned with Penske. There's always a lot of talk in IndyCar about, the the masters of the damper development will be basically that they will have that edge. Over the winter, David has been talking to a lot of guys for a bunch of racer features about how fundamental to finding an edge a damper program is. I mean, from your own experience, is a credible in-house damper program the difference between title contending and not?
In IndyCar, where you have basically the same car and it's all about optimizing what you have, at the end of the day, then the dampers is one of the most influential things that give you the setup, right? The damper keeps the tire on the ground, gives you the grip, keeps the platform stable on ovals, super speedways, and street tracks, not just bumpy tracks everywhere, right? That's what makes the difference. So I don't know if it has to be in-house, but it has to be the best. Like, so if you're getting your dampers from Penske or Ganassi or Andretti, and they are the ones that are hitting it right, then you're going to be in a good place. Meyer Shank, the same with Ganassi, right? So
Yeah.
it is what makes the difference. And to your point, like, I remember the first time I went to Newman Haas was 2005. They were dominating at the time, right? Sebastian was winning the championships, like with one hand almost.
Yeah.
And the rumor in the paddock from the other teams was like, hey, these guys have electronic diffs. They have titanium all over the car. They have a car on the 7-post rig 24/7, replicating what's happening on track. I went there, and honestly, it was the most basic car in terms of no fancy, shiny parts. But there were 30, 40, 50 pages of analysis and reports before and after each race, which, again, Craig Hampson was a big part of that. But it was purely analysis of what was happening, and 70% was understanding dampers and high speed, medium speed, low speed, and I learned things like, I was like, whenever I had, and again, I joined Newman Haas in 2005. I had been 5 years already in IndyCar. At that point, you think you already know it all. And whenever we would have like some traction issues, usually you focus on the back, like softening springs or dampers or weight distribution. And I remember, actually, I had my race engineer, which was Rocky, Guillaume Rocklin. I taught him a couple of things, and he did well after.
He did well, yeah, he did.
He did well after. I remember, actually, there was a race in Montreal that I ended up winning, my only win. We're having issues with power down. It's like, yeah, I come in the morning and I see the changes, and, he went stiffer on high speed in the front dampers, bumping, stiffer, higher. And I'm like, is that going to help me braking? Is that going to help me? No, look, because, when you're putting the power down, there's this little, undulation on the track, and that little undulation, if the high speed is a little stiffer at the front, just brings the weight a little bit back. And I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever.
Wow, attention to detail.
And that's all dampening, and it's 2005, so I can say those things now. It's only 20 years later, but I'm sure much hasn't changed. It's all about good analysis of what's happening at the tire level and understanding it, asking the right questions, trying to find the answers, and doing a better job than the guy next door, So that was a long answer to your question.
That was a good answer to our question.
But specific, yeah.
Well, Dave, one thing as well, we had half a season with the hybrids.
Yeah.
We're now into a full season with them. We're actually going to see hybrid power at the Indy 500 for the first time. Given that everybody has had that half a season, are hybrids going to be more of a story or less of a story? Have teams learned what they need to learn at this point, or?
The engine manufacturers haven't. Yeah, well, they probably have by now, but they were still. Speaking to some of the engineers in winter, they were saying that there's been a lot of careful analysis as to when the torque curve and how the hybrid works with the torque curve, because it's not like they can do a lot to the torque curve at this stage, because these engines are so near the end of their life. So the rest of it is about tuning the hybrid piece. But I mean the big change this year will be the fact that they can use it on pit lane, which poor Colton got penalised for at Road America last year. But I mean, I think it's also meant that you've had less work to do as well, right? Because the cars can.
Thank God.
Huh? Yeah. Have they reduced your pay?
They don't pay me per lap, you know, so.
Okay, yeah, you haven't had to come out quite so often, but I think the big relief about having the hybrid self-starter is the lack of interruptions to the practice and qualify.
Yeah.
Because I used to just drive certain drivers up the wall. They'd look at their qualifying groups and think, "Oh God, he's in it, right? We have to go out now before this guy crashes and ruins the end of the session." So yeah, I think that will make a big difference to how compelling the qualifying sessions are. And now there's also an extra set of alternate tires as well.
Yeah, on the street and road courses. Yeah.
Yeah, which is. I mean, I assume that therefore they can, the people who get to the fast six can use therefore a set of alternates in all three qualifying selectors, instead of trying to save, rather than trying to bang in a lap in Q2 to give some life to the tyre still for Q3. They can have not multiple goes at it, but they can do it.
But that's taking away one set of the primaries as well. So there's kind of swings and roundabouts, sort of 15 laps into a stint at St. Pete and thinking, I wish I had that extra set of primaries.
Yeah. But I think Firestone have also been, agreeable to the idea of, making a bigger gap between the primaries and the alternates, right?
That always brings better racing.
Exactly.
And honestly, just by having one more alternate reds, not greens, sorry, than primaries now, however you slice it, it means you're gonna have one more run on the alternatives. And if you're a rookie, like you need like as much experience as you can on the alternates, because like honestly, like if the first time you see them is in qualifying, like okay, maybe by the third, fourth race, you understood, that tire is better under braking. I can abuse it more under braking or under power, or is it rolling speed? Usually it's one of the three. It's not all three. And an experienced guy can know sooner. And imagine you're a rookie, like you happen to be in the top three in each practice leading into qualifying. You're doing great. And then you see a tire and then you have to get the best out of it. You may be 8.
Yeah.
Maybe your chances of winning, are gone just because you don't get that tire yet. So I think it just makes it a little more fair for everyone.
In the field at the moment, are there, as you see it, and obviously, you get an up-close look every weekend, are there drivers who are basically alternate masters and there are drivers who are basically primary masters, guys who can sort of are masters of the longer run, guys who are masters of really sort of getting the most out of those alternates?
I think so. And I think that's what you see sometimes, a guy that in practice is maybe 10th and somehow ends up always in the fast 6.
Yeah.
It's not like he decides to just, I'm going to try a little harder when it's qualifying time. Is because they're able to understand that tire a little better, them and their main engineer, like hitting the pressures right. It's better if we push hard second lap and it shows up. And maybe our car is not great, but we're able to do that. So the rear stays behind me for an extra lap. And that's when, you can carry the speed for qualifying but then in the race, this guy always goes backwards. It's not like he's not trying in the race. It's like somehow he managed to get the most on the red, but the car is maybe not there, So yes, I couldn't tell you right now which guys. I mean, there's usually
probably Pato. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just say Pato to any sort of thing when it comes to.
Or the guys that always qualify great is because they understand the tire better,
Well, Will, for instance.
For example, Will Power. Yes.
Yeah.
We'll go back to Will in another capacity in a little while, but David mentioned safety cars and sort of the fact that guys are getting back on the track themselves. Just give us your take on going to Formula One. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you're the you're Bernd Mailander, you're the safety car driver. Every single driver is radioing through to the team to tell race control, get him to speed up, get him to speed up, get him to speed up. We're losing heat and pressure. What is the philosophy for you in IndyCars, say on street and road courses, as the pace car driver? What are you trying to do to get them ready for that restart?
First of all, I don't listen to what Kyle Novak is telling me ever. No.
Right, okay, fair enough.
Kyle Novak is the race director for the ones that know. And we happen to be exactly on the same page. He somehow always has listened to my opinion about it. And I have one because I was a driver for many years, right? And I know the faster I can go as a pace car, the warmer they can keep the tires, the less chances there's another crash at the restart. So that alone justifies why I try to go as fast as I can. Honestly, I am driving at 95% often when outside of, let's say, the corner where the crash is. The rest of the track, I'm driving fast, as fast as I can. And even if I drive as fast as I can, even if I'm super talented, as you guys know, it's not an IndyCar that I'm driving, right? So for the guys behind me, it always feels slow. So I've had drivers, same as in Formula One, complain to, on the radios, like, hey, tell the pace car, and the answer is always the same, guys, this is not an IndyCar. I'm sorry. Sometimes I think it would be cool to have actually the two-seater as the pace car. So at least I could go faster, but it wouldn't be practical for many reasons.
That's a good idea, though. I do like
that. That'd be pretty cool, right? And
I'd be a passenger.
I could still show that I have it and maybe do the fastest lap of the race. I've led the most laps as a pace car, but I've never done the fastest lap yet.
We need to do a calculation and work out how many laps you led last season, actually. Yeah.
I did.
It's just reminded me one year that the two-seater Mexico City went through the speed track quicker than the race cars did. I don't know if that says more about the pace car, or not the pace car, but the two-seater, than it does about how much wing they'd put on the cars. But yeah, it went through the speed tracks about 195, and you guys were doing 190. So
right, let's explore that then as a possibility.
Yeah, and Mario would still be up for that as well.
Absolutely.
Mario would basically pull rank on Oriol.
100%. Yeah.
Just going back to looking at some of these packages this year and some of these dark horses. Dave made a very good point there on the fact that there are two very different drivers now at McLaren. Christian Lundgaard joining Pato O'Ward.
Yep.
The fire and ice.
Well, yeah, I mean, Mr. Quick Hands and a guy who's got is crazy quick himself. I mean, look at the performance in Toronto last year, whatever.
Yeah.
But Dave made the good point there that sort of having different driving styles in a team is sort of, the sum is greater than the parts in terms of what they can bring. Looking back on your own career experience, who was the most different driver in terms of technique and style to you? And did that have a beneficial effect?
So, sorry if someone already heard this because I say it often. One of the best things that happened in my career is that I had many teammates. Being at 14 different teams, you have many teammates.
14, yep.
As a rookie, I had Cristiano D'Amata. Then later I had Scott Dixon. Then I had Sebastian Bourdais. Then I had Will Power. So you could argue I had maybe the four guys that dominated open wheel in this side of the ocean as teammates, which helped me in many ways. And for sure, the driver that had the style most different to mine was Sebastian.
Right, okay.
Bourdais.
Yep.
Of how he drove and how he set up the car. And luckily for me, if you guys remember when I joined Newman Haas for the first time is when Bruno Junqueira got hurt at the 500. So the season was already on. It was the third race of the season. And the first race was Milwaukee. I always, for some reason, even if I'm from Europe, I liked ovals. And I did great at that race. I didn't like the car. The team actually trusted me. We changed completely the car. I finished third in that race, passed Sebastian in the race. I only had a one race deal. So I go to the next race. And I remember going to meet with Kyle Haas to talk about the contract of the rest of the year. I heard rumors they were only going to do one race at a time. They were talking about some hot shots from Europe to do the rest of the season. So I'm like, I have to, convince Kyle to keep me in the car for the season. The next race was Portland. And I went to meet with him at his office, and I thought, like, listen, I'm going to tell him if I'm within 3/10 from Sebastian when he's dominating, then you keep me for the season. If not, you hire someone else for it. Anyway, we're in the meeting, and I'm sure you heard before when you had a meeting with Carl Haas, it was super interesting because he was obviously he knew a lot about racing, but he was a character himself. So we're there talking, and he's famous for doing, as you're having meetings with him, he would always do the most interesting like drawings, and so you're there talking, and you don't know if he's paying attention. Somehow the meeting went 180. We never even talked about anything like of my contract. I didn't say what I was going to say. Luckily, because we go to Portland, and again, I had not driven that car in a road course yet, and I was like, "What's wrong with this car? The car wouldn't turn. It just would go straight." And I finished the session, and Sebastian is P1, and I'm like, the first session I was like, I don't know, P15, and I end up qualifying 7/10 behind Sebastian.
Wow.
If you're a driver that you think you're decent, or you think obviously you're good at that point, again, it's my 5th season. I had teammates already, Damata, Dixon. I had some self-esteem already at that point. I couldn't understand how was he able to be 7/10 faster than me with the same car. He's on pole, and I think I was, 7 or 8 in qualifying. I was like, this is impossible. But because I had, again, shown up in the middle of the season, it's not like I had a preseason to like, let's make that car work for me, my style. I know I can drive. Come on, Rocky, give me the car I need. At that point, I'm going race to race. I have to make whatever they're giving me work, especially when my teammate is on pole and is proving that that car can win races as it is, Oriol. If you're half good as you think you are, you should be able to be within 3/10 from this other guy. He's showing you have the data. I have the data. And as I said, Newman Haas were excellent at data analysis. So I can see exactly what he's doing different than me. And to your point, that was the best thing that could ever happen, because I learned so much.
Right.
I learned not just the difference in driving style. People, drivers say, I like more oversteer, understeer. That year I understood not what a car with understeer does to you. A car with a very secure rear end. And that's what Sebastian likes.
Right.
People just say, he likes understeer. No. He likes a car that he can trust on entry. And especially on street races, on 90-degree corner, dirty asphalt, bumpy, between walls, when you can trust the rear end on entry to the level that he does, the speed he would carry into the corners, it was mind-blowing. It was like, there's no way. But again, you have the data. It teaches you, I'm going to try this next session, and you do it, and the rear stays there, and you can carry that speed. And if that's the apex, he just points here to the wall, but somehow because he has understeer, and then I just learned so much.
Right.
That it completely, up to that point, I always liked pointy cars, and from then on, I always focus, and I tell drivers that I work with, and like, focus, how does the corner start? With entry, right? You need to carry speed. You need the rear end to be underneath you that you can trust 100% when it's all tires, when it's low fuel, high fuel, dirty air. You need the rear end to be there if you want to carry speed. Then work on the rest of the corner. I want, of course, the front to go where I tell him to go at the apex and have a good rear end on exit. Of course, all that, but it starts with the entry. So it did make my skills on driving and setting up the car much better than before I had Sebastian. I learned things from the Mata. I learned things from Dixon. I learned things from Power, of course. I mean, Power is like a level of commitment that Sebastian has with when the rear end is there all the time. Even if the car is like completely awful, Power somehow has that commitment, as we've seen over and over, and that's why he has the poles he has, right? So I did learn a lot from Will too. But Sebastian was the guy that drove most differently to me and set up the cars most different to what I liked.
Given that these DW12s now are of the vintage that they are, is there now a much smaller window for a driver being able to sort of dial their preferences into them? I mean, does everybody know that there is, route one for making a DW12 as quick as possible at this sort of track, or and you say working with drivers yourself, we'll get onto that in a little bit, but is there still quite a margin for drivers to be able to sort of dial in their preferences and still be quick in an Indy car?
I think so. Like, not only the car is old, with the canopy and other things, it becomes heavier. So then you hear, it abuses the front tires or whatever. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we still see different styles fast. Like you see Pato running a more than not loose, oversteady car. And you see Palou driving a car that he can drive like this, right? So the two styles win races. So I still think that there is, a bit of a window to make a car work on both ways.
Dave, just coming to you. I mean, in terms of you being stood trackside and looking at the current IndyCar Series field, who do you sort of like, in terms of just the visceral experience of seeing a driver kind of on the edge, sort of, doing their thing in an IndyCar? Who is the guy who sort of excites you the most in terms of, the style and what they're putting into those cars?
Often it is Palou, actually. The other guy that I'm always impressed by is car control, and unfortunately it hasn't translated to results often yet, is Rinus VeeKay.
Right.
He really takes that car by the scruff of the neck. I think he's remarkable to watch. And I felt sure he was going to be strong as soon as I got a call from Will Power saying that VeeKay's bleep fast.
I'm glad we got the bleep in there.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Rinus. I don't work with Rinus, but I've been a fan, and we didn't mention Coin earlier when we were talking about teams, but having Rinus in the team is gonna help. And we've seen Coin go through phases when they get a top driver, they somehow motivates the rest of the hiring and getting
the Bourdais effect.
The Bourdais, Wilson, so Junqueira and myself too.
Yep.
And, I got them a podium.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like they didn't have for 10 years, 03, 04. So anyway, but I'm a huge fan of Rinus, and I agree with you. I think he's a great talent on the grid for sure.
I think his problem has been not always having a teammate that he could bounce ideas off. So whether he can still flourish at Coin this year with Jacob Abel, I don't know. But I think he's, if you give him the right car, I think he can still, strangle the neck of it. But Palou and him, I'd say, are the ones to watch. But also, Will on the flyer. McLaughlin at certain tracks like Mid-Ohio and Barber is amazing as well. It's not so much the car slidey, it's just the kind of eye-popping commitment to the long duration corners where you can tell he's just trusting the car to stick there. And I'd love to see the facial expression he's pulling under there, because you just get the impression that McLaughlin's a bit of a like the Duracell bunny, like he's just so enthusiastic about it. But,
sorry to interrupt you there, but you know what? Like, I've been thinking about something similar. I'm sure you've seen, like, I think Fox is looking at putting the in-car cameras again that we used to have in Champ Car, which I think it's cool. So you see a little bit more the visual from the driver, but I don't think it's that big of a difference that they make it sound, as a proper in-car camera, like you really see. But I always thought, like, why don't we turn them around? So we would see, even if it's just the eyes, you wouldn't be looking at the eyes of a driver for 3 minutes, but you would see some moments. And you've seen Will Power's eyes when they get, or a Tagliani, or, when they're full on or sweating. So I think it would be pretty cool to be able to see that. So let's turn those cameras inward. That'd be cool.
Well, we've got Fox coming in. We've already seen them giving it the TLC IndyCar ads during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, great.
I mean, that's moving things on. Okay, you can tell Fox, I want this doing to sort of enhance the broadcast coverage. Tell me what you are going to go to Fox with and tell them we need to do this right now. You've got your backward facing cameras then, so you can see Will's starry eyes.
Well, if you ask me, and I've been banging on about this for about 20 years, ever since I saw it used in Formula One. You know, when you have the ghost car, and it was used in WRC to see where one car's making up time on another or losing time to another.
Well, NASCAR qualifying last weekend as well.
Right.
Yeah, the sort of like the ghost there.
Yeah, because on an oval, it's so important because people think oval qualifying is boring, and it's not. But
that was emphatically said, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it is really hard to spot the differences sometimes. Even I think my eye's fairly well trained, but no, you can't always see it. But yeah, showing, like if you saw the Penske's qualifying laps last year for the 500, and it would be interesting to see where the other Chevy cars or where the Hondas are missing out and that kind of thing. I think that needs to be part of every qualifying broadcast.
I couldn't agree more. And not just ovals, like on street race. If you can see like whoever is on pole, what is he doing better? Is he's able to break 10 feet later at this corner that already, let's say, Dixon already broke later than anyone, and then power goes out, and what, another 2 feet here, another 2 feet there. Then you can gain more like understanding of what is that guy doing better, and then you become a fan because you can understand what he's doing better or what the car is doing better. I think the ghost and all that, I think it helps a lot understand.
I think there's certain drivers that would really resent it, but
well, then it's another reason for them to get better. Whatever. Yeah. I don't know who and what you're thinking. Tell us. Come on.
Nah, I just think there are certain
drivers. You've started this.
No,
yes.
No, but in the same way that teams were really upset at the idea of showing completely accurate like fuel levels and that kind of thing. Oh, you're just going to get everyone homogenizing the same thing and you're going to follow our tactics or whatever. I think that there'd be drivers who were upset because,
Well, you haven't talked yourself out of the ghost car there.
No.
And I'm with Oriol in terms of, if they've got to show stuff, just become a better driver then. Yeah, exactly. So, hey, in that, we just touched on the Indy 500. We didn't get the three-peat at the Super Bowl. We didn't get the Kansas City Chiefs sort of doing 3 in a row.
Good.
But a certain Joseph Newgarden can actually do the three-peat in May. I mean, there's always been a reason for drivers not to sort of complete the three-peat. I mean, Helio, for instance, almost could have had it in 2003. Jill sort of takes over towards the end. It's sort of like an in-house kind of like removing that chance. We've got it this time around where, Team Penske being as strong across the board as they are at Indy. I mean, is there a scenario where Joseph won't get it because basically Will has got it or Scott McLaughlin's got it? I mean, are they the team to beat at Indy again this year, do you think?
They've been showing up the strongest, right? So and the three are strong drivers, and they're gonna work their ass off to definitely be contending those last 5 laps. But to your point, Will wants to win again, and Scott would, I'm sure, love to win the 500, and they're not going to give 1 inch to Joseph. But Joseph, there's no question that he's been so strong on all the ovals the last few years that he's going to be there, and he doesn't make mistakes, So will be interesting to see where Chevy and Honda stack too, right? Chevy the last couple of years have showed up stronger, in my opinion, to the 500. Honda was before, and it seems like they always go on cycle. So I'm sure Honda has, they have been working really hard all winter. And then if you have the Honda showing up better, then you have the Andretti's dominating again compared to the Penske's, right? So or the Rahals or whatever. So it will be fun. We don't know, but to your point, the three-peat is there. I'm sure it's in Joseph's mind every night or every morning when he goes to work out,
Yeah.
There's also, last year's calendar where the ovals, the end of the season was almost like it became an oval championship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was a Portland interspersed in there, whatever. We've got it where it's a little bit more spaced out. We've got Worldwide Technology Raceway coming in, you know, not too long after Indy. It feels like it's more sort of balanced. There was a school of thought last year that basically guys like Palou would be, you know, maximising until we got to those last 6 or 7 races, and then Joseph Newgarden would take over, basically, you know, oval. Obviously, it didn't work out like that. But, I mean, what do you think was missing from, you know, that last sort of nth of a degree in terms of Joseph and Penske last year sort of not sealing the deal?
It's just that it's super competitive. You have to get everything right to win in any race. Like, and you saw even my buddy. I keep talking about Will. Yes, I manage.
We'll get onto that more specifically.
But even
in a minute,
before, because I've been always a close friend of Will. Like, I was actually proud of him last year. We were all thinking Joseph was going to take over, and in Milwaukee, Will was up there, and then he ends up spinning. But you know, the speed was there, and same Nashville and same. So it's just everyone has gotten so good, and to win, to beat the others, it just everything has to go your way that day. Every pit stop, your strategy, the last tire pressure adjustment in the last pit stop has to be not just good one, the perfect one, if someone else gets it perfect, you know? So it's tough. It really is.
I think that Penske will face greater opposition because,
Well, let's not forget, by the way, that the champ is in a Chip Ganassi racing car. Let's not, you know.
Yes, there's that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, aside from even the possible engine disparities between Honda and Chevy, I think that there's a lot of intelligent people at McLaren. I think Pado's proven he can be so fast around there. I think that this could well be his year. But on the flip side, if Honda are strong, I think that Craig Hampson's arrival at Andretti or re-arrival at Andretti Autosport is going to have far more of an influence than it did last year because he arrived in the month of May. I can envisage Herter and Kirkwood and Ericsson, who of course has won it before, just doing to everyone what Penske did and monopolizing the front row.
And sorry, but also like you touched on McLaren. I always wonder why there were no IndyCar teams that had a more true partnership with a Formula One team, because when you have 300, now they only have 175 million budget, but forever they had $500 million budget, right? And can you imagine how much development they do on zero friction lubricants and things like upright treatments and gearbox treatments that make a huge effect at the 500?
Yeah.
So I always thought, how come that doesn't happen? It never really did. McLaren is one house, right? So I would imagine that eventually some of the knowledge ends up truly transpiring both sides, and at the 500 it would show more than other places. So
because that's the thing, that the devil in the details when it comes to Indy. You know, we're talking like, you know, the first team who decided helicopter tape on the joints or whatever and stuff, and now, you know, as you say, you know, low friction lubricants. These things were in themselves are what, maybe a hundredth of a second or something, but you know, add 4 or 5 of them together, and suddenly there is something which is basically a difference maker. So
and the Indy 500 field is just crazy close.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's ever been closer, has it? The last couple of years, the top 33 have been covered by like 2.5 miles an hour or something ridiculous.
Both of you then, give me a surprise package in the Indy 500.
It depends what you classify as a surprise.
One that will surprise me when you say it.
Yeah, I suppose that's the definition of surprise, isn't it? Yeah.
Oriol's coming back. That's surprising.
Yeah. Do you know, that was going to be another question as well. Yeah, the old once a year.
I don't know who would be a surprise, honestly, because to your point, I don't know what like even Renus with a coin, would it be a surprise? Not like, I mean, I don't know. Foyt, no, there's no surprises because everyone has a fair shot.
Ferrucci has sort of given you enough sort of like tells that, if we suddenly see him in victory lane, it's not that he's sort of come completely out of the blue. So,
yeah.
Dave, you got a surprise?
I would say, looking down the list, I honestly think Felix, this could be Felix's year. He ran just as good as Pato at times when they were teammates. Plus, he's got the expertise of Helio to lean on. So, I mean, obviously, we keep saying it's engine dependent, but if Honda is on an upswing, and bearing in mind Meyer Shank are sharing data with Ganassi,
right?
I think that he's going to be my surprise pick for the 500. I say that now, he'll go and qualify on the last go, won't he?
I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and say I think this is the Indy 500 where nothing stupid happens with Colton Herta. I think we actually see a definitive Colton Herta Indy 500, which may not be a win, but second or third where the guy has the momentum and sort of keeps momentum, as opposed to there is something strange happens at some point during the.
He deserves a normal race and attempt. Yeah, you're right.
You were saying about your one-offs at the Indy 500. I mean, that went quite sort of until quite recently, and it was you showing up.
I honestly I still haven't truly digested that. I may never do it again. Honestly, until last year, I still was working with an agency here in LA because I just turned 50. Longevity is hot now, so there's many companies that are investing money. So there's sponsors out there.
50 is a new 30.
So and if I would win now, I would be the oldest guy to ever win the 500. That's a good story. I think. I think cooler than being the youngest. There's always going to be a younger guy.
Who else is going to try at 50? That moment has passed for you.
Yeah.
who else is going to try at 50, and still be hopefully competitive? So I honestly felt every time I did it, I felt better. I felt I showed up better than the year before, even my last two. So, of course, I have it in me that, I think I can not only handle, these guys, I think I can be up front. But one of the issues, one of the main issues is, a good problem is that now we have 28, 27 full-time cars.
Yeah.
Right? Back when you had only 20 that did the full season, that meant almost every team would add a car for the 500.
Mm-hmm.
So all the good teams, 5, 6 good teams would add a car, at least one. So you had, you could, two things, have access to a top equipment and also sell to a sponsor hey, I'm going to be the fourth car, the third car at Andretti, at Ganassi, at Rejo. When you have 27, 28 full cars, you only have 5 more to do the 33. You have Marco with Andretti. You have, there's maybe 1 or 2 good cars that maybe do the one-off that are already given.
Kyle Larson's getting a pretty good package.
The McLaren. So I don't want to just find money or even show up if I don't think I have. Again, my goal would be the oldest guy to win the race, right? So if I cannot put a program together that I at least convince myself that it's a winning car, so I think my time is gone. It was a long explanation, but
if you won, I'd pay to. There's 2 people's faces who I would pay good money to see.
Are we going to get sued when you say this?
No.
Or?
I'd like to see Fernando Alonso's face. And also Alex Palou's face. If you came back and won on an oval before Alex, that would just be hilarious.
It's funny you bring out those 2 names, but it would be great to be fighting for the win with those guys. And when Fernando was there, I was like, man, how great would it be if we end up last lap both fighting for that win,
But speaking of Fernando, I mean, wasn't that sort of a difference? First one there, it just went beautifully well. Okay, the engine issue sort of ended the afternoon early, but second one, Fernando experienced the nightmare, the fickle nature of the Indy 500. It's
which most drivers have, right?
Yeah.
Even the great, Rick Mears, I'm sure can come up with many Indy 500s that it was the most challenging day of their lives, right? So, and that's what that speedway has, and Fernando got both sides, yeah.
And looking at Kyle Larson coming back again this year, things went pretty well.
That would be the
last year.
surprise. That would be the surprise.
Okay.
That would be the surprise because we all know he can do it. He's going to be in a car that can do it. He comes a second year with the experience of it, understanding it. The team is going to be better than it was last year altogether. He could be a surprise winner.
Now, the only thing is Rick Hendrick has told him that, if there's any sort of overlap, the Coke 600 and your day job is the priority. So, he's got to hope that we get an Indy 500 in the right time slot this year. So,
is that clear? Because I know last year wasn't that
Rick has
clear.
been fairly unequivocal that you're not going to get that sort of golden ticket from NASCAR a second time. So, seamless segue.
Yeah.
Fernando Alonso. Oriol obviously, isn't pursuing an Indy 500 ride this year unless he's kind of, keeping that close to his chest. But he is a busy guy. Just tell us about A14 and basically not just what it is as a company, but in terms of what you bring to drivers, what you bring to race weekends, what you sort of remove from them to allow them to be, the optimum race car driver.
Yeah, first, let's touch on Fernando. When he...
Who, by the way, would just clarify how you and Fernando are working together too.
Yeah, so Fernando started a driver management company 3 years ago called A14, A for Alonso, and 14 has always been his race number, with two extraordinary gentlemen that also, their name starts with an A.
That's convenient.
And Alberto. That's why A14. And they're a boutique agency. They have 14, 15 drivers, mostly racing in Europe, but they needed someone in the US, so I became their US representative, we call it. And we have 3 guys here. We have Brett Matchman, Australian, young talent, is going to race USF 2000 this year. Niels Cullen, second year in Indy next with Ganassi. First time Ganassi has a team in Indy next, so we're very excited about that. And this fellow Australian guy, Will Power. Alonso, when he has a Formula One contract, he's fully crazy dedicated only to that. And there was another thing that came up that maybe he was going to do, and he zero chance. So there's no chance he's going to even think about the 500, Le Mans, or anything else while he's racing F1. He's crazy. Honestly, even at this stage, not just of his age, of having been in Formula One for 20-something years, so driven, motivated. He is a beast. He is a lion. You see it when he's driving, but when you know him and when you talk to him, it's all he thinks about, and he's a machine. He really is. So until he retires Formula One full time, I don't think we're going to see him at the 500.
Right.
And then about A14 and myself, I think the guys that have followed my career, you guys know I had to work hard. Not just finding sponsorship, but with engineers. When you only have 1-year contracts, you would always feel like you're auditioning, and you have to make that situation work. Like I said, anyone has that year. Honestly, every season was kind of in a similar situation where you may not like that engineer so much. You may not see eye to eye. Who cares? You need to make it work because you don't have a 2-year contract, right? So my point is I had to work really hard, and I always felt I would like to transfer whatever I learned to younger talent if I felt there was a good chemistry, if there was the right situation, some sort of a mentorship, and hopefully they make less of the mistakes I made, and you help them. And
so in the case of Will, then, who...
He needs a lot of help.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking.
Yes.
And as you say, junior to you, so...
He knows he owes me everything he learned from me in 2008, so now he's finally can pay me back a little bit as I'm managing his future.
This is handy.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms... You're not just the paperwork guy. You are bringing more than that, even to somebody who's as, experienced, been there, seen it, done it, maintains the motivation like Will does. I mean, what in terms of when you're at the track with somebody who has, reached the heights that Will has, what are you sort of bringing to enhance
With
that
Will,
weekend?
it's interesting. Honestly, I'm so happy that it's worked out this way. But since we were teammates in 2008, we truly struck an honest, genuine friendship. And through the years, I talked to him regularly, like, "Hey, what's going on? You know, what, you know." And Will is such an interesting character. Like he just broke Mario Andretti's record in pole positions, he will still always be questioning himself. Am I driving good enough? You know, it's so amazing. Like honestly, and he truly does, and that's what makes him as good as he is, because he's always digging.
Yeah.
But having someone, we were already friends, so we were already talking. But now that I'm 100% on his, team, and there's no question that I benefit from his success now, right? So having someone like me, that we were teammates, and I know a little bit what I'm talking about. I think it helps having two brains a little bit, or someone you can talk to genuinely about how to get better to the next race, how to get better with engineer, how to get better, and with younger guys even more, right? Because I did love it, everything about it, not just driving. I love working with engineers, even finding money that as any driver is the last thing you want to be doing, and it's a pain in the ass. And I used to hate it, like every driver. You want to be working on performance, even if it's with the engineer or driving or in the go-kart track. I don't want to be out there trying to find money. But at the end of the day, also, I ended up enjoying that part, because most of the sponsorships that happen in racing are, have some component of business to business, right?
Yeah.
So that teaches you how to think like, hey, I have this oil company that are, seem to be a little interested. I know this guy that owns 16 dealerships. If I can put them together and, even if only one of 100 of the equations you try to make end up working, some do. And you're talking to the CEO of FedEx and the CEO of this company, so it still is an interesting conversation. So my point is, even that part I ended up enjoying, and I think if I can influence a younger guy to think that way on the things I learn and stuff, it's fulfilling in some ways. So that's what I find myself doing and enjoying.
Oriol said there, obviously Will is a different case study to a guy doing his first year of USF 2000 or whatever. We're seeing it where with Will, with the likes of Scott Dixon, there is longevity, but there is also longevity where there is no apparent dip in form.
No.
Will is still getting a pole every couple of races. Well, maybe not
last year, but
Scott is still not just winning races, but is piecing together title challenges. I mean, Oriol there is basically going to win the Indy 500 age 52 or whatever. So
exactly.
What is it about this where it's before there was a shelf? Oh, Fernando Alonso as well, obviously.
Yeah.
There was a shelf life, and now it's just.
I couldn't agree more. First of all, I think the last 2 decades we all understood maybe how to work out better and stay in shape, and how important the whole equation is, right? But I still say the same. Like I just told you, like, I never had long-term contracts, right? I always had 1 year after a year. And I think that's what really made me better as a driver, as an engineer, as everything else. But because I never had the long-term contract and the millions in the bank. But that's why I honestly, and we haven't spoke about Dixon enough. Like to me, a guy that has been at Ganassi since 2002.
Yeah.
Which means he's had the best equipment, has plenty of money in the bank, and still have that same motivation that still shows up. I promise you, if you're delivering at this level, is because the motivation is there. Like there's no...
Is my math right? He has been at Ganassi for more than half of his life.
That sounds
Probably.
right.
Yeah. I mean, that's
He was born
ridiculous.
in 1980.
And still a contender every year. Like, I hope, I don't know if I would have that motivation. I just told you what fired my motivation, that I never had the long-term contract. These guys had it and still show up every year, and they're contenders and they keep getting better at it. I find it amazing. Like, I don't know if I would, so it's
I think the remarkable thing is that these days, it used to be whereby past a certain age, a driver was so set in his ways that he couldn't flex. It would be like he'd come in and say to the engineer, make the car work for my driving style. Once I got past a certain age, that's how it would be. This is how I drive it. But now, part of the key to their longevity is this flexibility in driving style. Okay, that's the quickest that car can go. Therefore, I need to adapt my style to suit the car, and not vice versa. And I think that's key to Will and Dixie's longevity. And I think we'll see the same from Alex Palou as well. I think he can drive a car that's oversteering, understeering, anything really, and he makes no mistakes. That's what's just amazing about Palou. He's just relentless. There's just like one mistake a year.
Well, what was last year's mistake?
He spun was it Milwaukee or Iowa? He tagged the wall and DNF'd.
And then he sort of knew to keep out of mischief at Nashville as well. Just let that one finish. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, no, he's just remarkable talent.
Well, I'm going to take this full circle now then, because we're a couple of days away from Oriol. Actually, you should be Ariel, since everybody else at A14, as you say, is like the letter A. So it's Oriol Servia.
I'm in Cold Wars.
Yeah.
Right, we'll try and think of something. So a couple of days away from getting in your pace car duties, you will lead laps at St. Petersburg. Just going to put the Pervy on the spot. Doesn't have to be in the correct order, but who's going to be on the podium at St. Pete? Who's going to take that St. Pete momentum into Thermal, into Long Beach, into Barber? Somebody speak.
I'm going to say Willie P and Kyle Kirkwood.
There's pregnant pauses and there's the ones where we think the sound has gone off. So Oriol's coming up with something here where...
No, I can see Will, Alex, and Dixon in the podium.
Right.
No mention there of Herta. No
I
mention.
mean, that's why I had a hard time.
Deep down, I think.
And remember, Pato should have won last year and had a little misfire like at the very end. So I'm sure he's thinking this is my year to win it. Like honestly, there's like so many. Yeah. It's and Scott's won there before, and
I'm saying Herta and O'Ward as two definite guys on the podium. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, remember the Herta, the cool suit year, where Herta had that sort of cool suit on at St. Pete. And it became the storyline that somehow Herta was running 20 degrees cooler than anybody else and had that extra brain power, whatever. But it was a heck of a win, and I think that
was the year it ended at St. Pete, isn't it?
No, that was a year I think when it started. I think.
Okay.
And honestly, to strengthen your point, we all hear these rumors if is Colton being considered for Formula One or not. I'm sure whatever the story is behind, it's a little extra motivation on Colton's this year.
Is this the last chance to land a title because of what comes next?
I'm sure, and even if it's not clear if he's going to Formula One, he probably thinks if I'm winning, definitely it's going to help the case. So he's going to have a little extra push there.
Well, I'm saying Herta, O'Ward, and I'm saying McLaughlin as throwing the podium, and that's probably because I'm saying ones that you two didn't say, just to sort of spread it around. So no offense to.
So I just point out this it's still an annoying little bit of trivia that Dixon has still never won St. Pete, and he's never won.
That's crazy.
And he's never won at Barber.
Huh. But isn't it crazy that we talk about a driver that way? Like, can you believe he's never won there? Like, he's won everywhere. Hey, Scott.
Whoa.
Well, this is a guy as well.
Thanks for leaving a couple for the rest.
But, it's the, can you believe he's only won one Indy 500?
I know, that's what's crazy.
He's lost it this way, he's lost it this way, and lost it this way. I mean, this again, in terms of the law of averages and in terms of Scott Dixon showing up at Indy every single year.
But you asked us for our surprise. You didn't say who's going to win Indy. You said... who's going to be the surprise at Indy?
So on that note, based on that, we've got our sort of like broad St. Pete predictions. based on the fact that Oriol has got a job to do and has now got to psych himself up to, lead those laps at St. Pete.
Yeah.
We'll call that a finish on the RACER Debrief. And Oriol, thank you very much for coming in.
It's been fun.
David, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for
Carry up to work.
Well, and not swearing. So thank you. Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.